Hey there everyone, Zian over here from Nintendo Life, and today we are bringing you our review of Contra Rogue Core on the Nintendo Switch. This review was originally written by PJ O'Reilly for NintendoLife.com and was reworked into this video by me. Contra Rogue Core sets itself roughly 7 years after the cataclysmic events of 1992's Contra 3: The Alien Wars, which was one of the very best entries in the franchise. And it's certainly quite the bold move to tie yourself so directly to such a beloved game. A sheer sign of confidence, you might think, and if it was confidence that Konami had, it was sorely misplaced. Because Contra Rogue Core is a missed opportunity and is nothing short of a mess. It's stuffed with unnecessary modes, has cumbersome combat, characters who spout terrible, cheesy lines, and on Switch, it's a blurred and muddy mess of low-resolution textures and pixelated edges on every surface. The decision to make this new Contra a twin-stick shooter may not have been the idea that every fan would have wanted, but if it was done right, it could have really paid off. With its constantly shifting camera perspectives and tight little arenas that cordon you off and fire tons of enemies in your direction, there's definitely the basis of something that could have been decent here. However, a combination of imprecise controls, boring level objectives, and enemies that are thrown at you haphazardly see to it that the whole thing just never gets off the ground. It never finds that magic, that addictive flow that the best in the genre possesses in spades. First off, aiming in a hectic twin-stick shooter needs to be refined and accurate, but the controls here just aren't that slick. Time after time, you'll find yourself struggling to hit the exact enemy, exploding barrel, or vehicle you were aiming for. There's also platforming elements in almost every level that feel extremely awkward, getting you into all sorts of trouble as you try and fail to reach some catwalk to deal with a grenade-lobbing mutant. It's these very basic building blocks that just aren't up to the task, ensuring that this is an experience that's going to struggle to hold your attention for very long at all. Missions play out by and large in very similar fashion and feature downright dull objectives. If you've played a video game, you'll probably be familiar with goals like reach the end, find your target, or destroy the enemy spawn point. It's just incredibly bland stuff that makes no effort to get you involved in what's going on in the world. There are boss battles that vary between being downright too easy or just plain awkward, and the game randomly shifts to a behind-the-shoulder aiming mode that's clumsy, inaccurate, and an example of a developer throwing something at their game instead of concentrating on making any of it any way refined. Now that being said, the original Contra did use a similar perspective-shifting tactic, but its application way back in the 80s was way more convincing and assured than what's attempted here. All of this nonsense is then cemented by the fact that the Switch port is right up there with the most blurred and pixelated games we've encountered on the console. It looks much worse docked, as the portable screen hides a multitude of its sins, but in both modes it's a pain to watch what's unfolding on screen. There's also the small matter of campaign missions, which can be run for a good 20 to 30 minutes that are set against a timer and cannot be paused. Once you start a mission, you're locked into completing it unless you choose to completely quit out, which is absolutely crazy considering the portable nature of the Switch. Now in terms of positives, there are plenty of ways to play through Contra Rogue Core, with online co-op available for the full campaign and exploration missions. There's a couch co-op mode that unlocks once you hit rank 2, although it restricts you to a few specific exploration missions and a 4-on-4 PvP mode. And in short, what that means is that there's no couch co-op campaign, and we just can't understand why Konami would let that happen. But getting back to the positives, there's an almost overwhelmingly deep upgrade and customization system, which is undoubtedly the strongest point of the entire package. And let's face it, this isn't exactly ideal when people just want to get on with shooting stuff. You'll hover up a ton of spare parts and materials during your missions, which can be used back at base camp to upgrade different aspects of your preferred weapons, and each gun comes with several slots to adjust firepower, cooling time, and so on. You can buy new weapons and even have surgery to implant upgrades into your chosen character's body, gifting you better movement speed, defense, or attack power. If all of this had been tied to a genuinely good twin-stick shooter, Konami and Toy Logic could have been onto a real winner, but it simply just isn't. Speaking of characters, the 4 on offer here, Kaiser, Hungry Beast, Miss Harakiri, and Gentleman, are uniquely enough designed, but there just isn't enough difference between their tactics on the ground to make it important which one you choose to play beyond their aesthetics. They all have 2 weapons, an overcharged firing mode, special attack, and a dodge that makes them temporarily invulnerable as they slice through enemies or to avoid incoming fire. And it's a shame that there isn't as much variety in how they play as there is in how they look. For goodness sake, one of them is a cyborg panda, for crying out loud. Surely that could have been leveraged into some kind of unique gameplay element, but there's just nothing. Now, there are occasions when things do come together in very short bursts, and mixing up your special moves, dodge, and guns can be pretty fun here and there. But another decision, in our opinion, ruins the flow of combat. And that's the fact that your guns overheat, and they overheat quickly. This is perhaps meant to add a layer of strategy to combat, but it's at the cost of constantly watching your weapon's meter instead of concentrating on blasting the hell out of alien invaders. It just feels like one more thing bolted on in a haphazard way, leading to a game that's both clunky and almost impossibly ugly on Nintendo's console. Contra Rogue Core has some good ideas. The twin-stick action could have worked if it hadn't been so fussy and inaccurate. The choice of characters could have been great if they had a bit more variety. And the deep customization and online game modes could have added longevity if they hadn't been attached to such a drab and messy looking game. In the end, nothing about this endeavor feels in any way related to the Contra games you know and love, and you do much better to grab the Contra Anniversary Collection at a much lower price. Or try out one of the many excellent twin-stick shooters or side-scrolling action games that are already available on the platform. You'll be glad you did. We here at Nintendo Life give Contra Rogue Core on the Nintendo Switch a 4 out of 10. If you'd like to read our full written review, you can find it over at nintendolife.com.